Hey, I'm MJ.
And I'm Sean. And today I want you guys to think of a situation where you learned something from an unlikely source, whether that was a sibling or a complete stranger. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, Sean. So as you know, I'm a teacher, and sometimes I work with really young students. And the other week I was working in a kindergarten classroom when a young girl came up to me and she taught me something I didn't know about spiders.
So a kindergartner taught you something about spiders.
Yeah.
Well, when God wants to tell us something, he can work through anybody. And what blows my mind is that he can work through people whether they're a Jesus follower or not. And that ties in perfectly with today's big idea, that God can work through unlikely people.
Let's check out today's God story and see more what this looks like.
Have you heard about the tortoise and the hare? Well, did you know that a hare and a rabbit are a completely different species? Rabbits are more sociable. Hi friends, Bruxy here. So I have a friend who has a phone like I do and has an iPad and a computer, but he doesn't know much about technology. So when his phone's not working or he needs to get an answer to a question, who does he turn to for advice? His kids. His kids know more about it than he does. The kids are pretty smart. And you know, often you think that adults should be teaching kids something, but you kids have a lot to teach us as well. And that reminds me of today's big idea. God can work through unlikely people. Unlikely. That means people we wouldn't expect God to be working through, and he can work through some pretty surprising people. So let's dive into our God story. Remember from last week, we've started the book of Joshua, which is a Bible book all about Joshua, and he is the new leader of the children of Israel. Now it was time for Joshua to lead the Israelites across the Jordan River into this new promised land, but they needed to spy out the land and see if there are any enemies there. So Joshua, son of Nun, that was his full name. Sounds like he had no parents, but his dad's name was Nun. Anyway, Joshua, son of Nun, chose 2 spies to go and see if there were enemies living in the largest city they were going to confront first, and that was the city of Jericho. So these 2 spies crept into the city of Jericho, and they were among the enemy. They hid in an unlikely person's home. Her name is Rahab. And Rahab welcomed them in because even though these people were enemies of the Israelites and enemies of God, Rahab believed in God and believed God was blessing the children of Israel. So she welcomed in the spies and shared her home with them, her meals with them, and gave them whatever information that they needed to help them win the city. Now here's why Rahab is someone we might think is an unlikely person for God to use. You might have noticed that a lot of the heroes in the Bible are men, and sometimes we start to assume that God just likes to work with men. But that's not true. Throughout the Bible, if we look more closely, God works with women just as much and often in different ways. Rahab was a woman who was also not popular. She was poor, and she was someone who had made some bad decisions in her life. But she believed in God, and God wanted to partner with Rahab. So the 2 spies were hiding out at Rahab's when all of a sudden the king of Jericho found out they were there. Oh no! So he sent some men immediately to her house to arrest them. But Rahab met them at the door and said, "You're right, they were here, but they've left. They've gone that-a-way." Or is it that-a-way? Or maybe that-a-way? Or wherever they went, if you hurry right now, you might be able to catch them. Well, the 2 spies were hiding up on the roof of Rahab's place, and she went up to them and let them know what's going on. And so in Joshua chapter 2, we read this. She said to them, "I know that the Lord has given you this land. We are very much afraid of you. Everyone who lives in this country is weak with fear because of you. We've heard how the Lord dried up the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. When we heard about it, we were terrified. Because of you, we aren't brave anymore. The Lord your God is the God who rules in heaven above and on the earth below." Wow, are you catching this? Rahab is not an Israelite. She lives among a people who worships a false god, and yet she knows truth when she hears it. She knows the God of Israel is the true God. Let's keep reading. Rahab continues, "Now then, please give me your word. Promise me in the name of the Lord that you will be kind to my family. I've been kind to you. Promise me that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, spare my brothers and sisters, also spare everyone in their families. Promise that you won't put any of us to death." So the spies promised Rahab that she and her family would be taken care of, protected, when the battle started. All she had to do was hang a red rope outside of her window, and then the soldiers would know which house was hers. It's amazing how God worked through Rahab. And you want to know something else that's cool? In the book of Matthew in the New Testament, that book begins in a way you might think is kind of boring. It's just a genealogy of who was whose grandparents, etc. But what we find out is that Rahab is in the family line of Jesus. Whoa, she's the great-great-grandmother of King David, and then she's the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great, and a whole bunch more greats grandmother of Jesus. That's amazing. If you knew Rahab back then, you would think she's one of the last people on earth that God would want to partner with to bring about the birth of the Messiah. But God really can work through unlikely people. What does all of this mean for us? It means no matter how much you sometimes feel unlikely or unusual, God does want to work through you, and that's true for everyone else around us. I'm Bruxy. It's been great hanging out. Peace.
Turn to the person next to you.
And discuss the following questions.
Question time! How many spies did Joshua send into the Promised Land? 4, 3, or 2? Who was the unlikely person that helped the spies hide? Rebecca, Renee, or Rahab? Rahab believed in the one true God. Because she hid the spies, they said they would give her bags of gold, make sure Rahab and her family was safe, or invite her to a feast.
Game time! Paint panic. Can you memorize the key verse before all the paint spills? Say it with me.
Here is what I am commanding you to do. Be strong and brave. Do not be afraid. Do not lose hope. I am the Lord your God. I will be with you everywhere you go. Joshua 1, verse 9.
Get ready. 3, 2, 1, go!
I think God made a massive statement when he used Rahab as a part of his plan to get his chosen people into the Promised Land.
Yeah, in those days, women didn't have important roles in society. And Rahab specifically, she didn't have the best reputation. So by using her, God showed his care, his love, and forgiveness.
Absolutely. On a completely different note, do you happen to like choirs?
I sure do.
Well, then you're gonna love this story. Watch this.
I love music. It makes me feel alive. I like to play music. I play guitar, and I also sing in a gospel choir at my school. I love to dance and groove, and yeah, I just really love music. Something that I also love are movies, and I love movies especially that are about real-life stories and about people who've gone through some hard times and been able to come out victorious in the end. And one of those movies that really inspired me is called Gifted Hands, and it's about a man named Ben Carson who was a neurosurgeon. He was the first person to successfully separate conjoined twins, and they were joint at the head. Watching that movie really inspired me because I got to see someone do something amazing and give these two children life and this family a new start, and that really inspired me to want to do neurosurgery as well. So once I decided that I wanted to do neurosurgery, I ended up applying to neuroscience at 5 different universities. And then I was touring universities, and something came up that I wasn't expecting. We ended up touring Queen's University, and we have some family in Kingston. And so we were sitting down to dinner, and I was explaining what my future plans were and what I was going to be doing. So I was talking about neurosurgery, and this one cousin looked at me and she said, well, you must want to study the brain in depth for the rest of your life, like one thing in a lot of detail. And she said that to me, and I just had this moment of like, no, that's not what I want to do. I've never thought about it like that before, but that's not really what I am interested in. I'm interested in the whole body. And so that really started me on a path of trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. After I had this conversation with this cousin, and when we were in Kingston, I was just thinking about what am I to do now? I've applied to science everywhere, and it was too late to apply to something else. All of a sudden, a lot of people were talking to me about nursing, and it was out of the blue. I didn't ask about it, but these friends of mine were just talking to me about it. I asked God, I was like, God, I feel like this is coming up a lot. If this is what you want for me, then I will follow you. And so I kind of started on the path of what it looks like to join the nursing program. So I started my first year of life sciences at McMaster, and as I was going through the year, I was looking for ways that I could transfer into the nursing program. And I went to the admissions lady and was talking to her about the possibility of switching. She said to me, there's no really point in trying because they only accept like 13 transfer students out of 400 applicants. I thought, okay, well, that's slim chances, but I knew that this is where God was calling me, and so I just prayed and trusted and asked him to open the doors if this is where he wanted me to go. On my last day of university, first year, I was helping my roommate pack her stuff and leave, and I just checked my email as we were kind of packing things up, and I saw an email from the nursing program at McMaster, and it said that I had been accepted after I had applied to transfer. And I screamed, and we all screamed, and like we're very excited together, and just thank God for opening that door for me. Looking back at this whole experience, I see where God was working, even when I didn't see it in the moment. I was planning to go to a different university before I visited them all, and then by the time I visited them all, I knew that McMaster is where I wanted to go. And through that, I was able to find out that McMaster has one of the best nursing programs in all of Canada, which kind of makes sense for me to transfer into it by choosing McMaster. And then also I found the gospel choir, and I'm able to sing with them. I have this great community, and we dance and we sing every week, and it's just a really great time. And so I see how God was working and how he's really brought so many blessings into my life. It's been 4.5 years later since I started my university career, and I'm now a graduate of McMaster's nursing program. I graduated in December, and I also have a job. So I'm officially a registered nurse, and will be starting at McMaster Children's Hospital on the pediatric oncology ward, so kids with cancer. So it'll be a really exciting new challenge, and I'm excited to see where God brings me.
Question time! Who was the unlikely person in Emily's life who simply asked a question and made her rethink everything? A friend? A cousin? Or a parent? When Emily realized that she wanted to go into nursing, what was the first thing she did? She prayed, she worried, or she felt discouraged? What else from Emily's story stood out to you?
Emily's story is cool, but that choir gets me fired up. The way they harmonize and their passion and energy is so amazing.
Yeah, and you can see that Emily really loves it.
She sure does. It's so cool to see how the choir is one thing that happened as a result of one thing that somebody said to her.
Yeah, exactly what we were saying earlier. God can work through people we don't even know or people we don't even expect it from. Let's break into our small groups now and see what this looks like in our lives.